Welcome to Uprisings. My name is Muriel Crabbs, and tonight we have with us A. Carville Peck Foster, who is the chairman of the York County Republican Committee. Is that what you call it? The York County Republican Committee. And
doesn't that name sound forbidding?
It does. And the committee obviously encompasses York County.
Yeah.
And you are, as a chairman, I think I've discovered, it's not really a paid position, is it?
No.
No. But you've been the chairman for how many years?
4 years, a little over 4 years now.
Okay. But you have been in politics for quite a while.
Quite a while. I think I was brought into it by my parents and immersed in it at an early age, and I got involved in my first formal campaign with the party in York County in 1960.
Oh my gosh, so let me
Coming up on 50 years.
1960, Richard Nixon.
Exactly right.
So you campaigned for Richard Nixon in 1960?
That was my first. I just walked into the Republican tent at the fairground and just let them know that, gosh, I'd be glad to help if you would just tell me what you want done. Well, that's usually all you have to say in politics. And, well, they just gave me a big bag of literature and said, go down through where you live, down in the Shrewsbury area, and just knock on doors. Now, no one bothered to tell me that we had the voters list, so you would know who's registered and who isn't.
Now, did they have those lists back then as well?
Oh, they had them, but nobody told me. They just said, go down and knock on doors, which I did, and I knocked on a lot of doors where people weren't registered. And they also didn't tell me that we had committee people in each precinct, and I gave a stirring speech, and I noticed that this lady had rapt attention to everything I said, and then she said, young man, do you know who I am? I said, no, I don't. I'm the Republican committee woman of this precinct.
So basically that's what the committee person is supposed to do, isn't it?
Yes.
To have the names of the Republicans in their district or area, and then go knock on doors and give them literature regarding the candidate.
There's a Republican committee man, a committee woman in each precinct, or at least there's positions for that. We don't have all of them filled, but that's the idea, at least.
So that they can share their thoughts with their...
They're representatives of the party in their individual district. They're elected by the people, and they in turn elect the chairman, and that's the basis of our organization in York County.
I'm still, I actually ran for and became a committee person for my district, and I'm still not clear on this because, and I know that you know this, but I am staunchly anti-war, and so I don't know if I'm supposed to be. Now I understand, as I said, I listened to Toomey, who's running for what office?
He's running for U.S. Senate.
All right. So as a senator, I did hear him the other night talk about the war and about supporting the troops, and I would like to hear him say, I want to get in there and get them taken out. That's not exactly the party line, is it? I mean, that is my...
There's a lot of opinions within the party for individuals who question maybe the value of what we're doing at the present time, either in Afghanistan or anywhere where we might have troops. And there are always questions of that type, whether we should be where we are with the troops at that time. And if you look down through history, there has never been a convenient or place to fight a war that everybody's happy with.
Right. Well, let's get back. I mean, I'm sure that...
Yeah, we won't solve all of that tonight.
Well, and I probably will revisit it just because it is one that sticks in my craw, but I'm much more interested in your history. I think you told me that your family was originally from Baltimore.
My mother's people were from Baltimore City, yes.
And I was telling...
And my father's from Baltimore County, so...
I was telling you that I recall, I was just a child, but when Kennedy was elected, now you say you worked with
That's
Nixon.
when I was working.
That's right. But I'm from a huge Catholic family, so we were Democrats. Or that is my family. My parents were Democrats. At that time, I was just a kid. But a little neighbor girl said to me that her parents said that if anything bad happened to the country, they were going to blame the Pope. And, as a Catholic, I was like, this is a terrible thing. But you were explaining to me that the division or the animosity between Catholics and non-Catholics in this regard was palpable.
That went back hundreds of years to the time of the Reformation, when there was this visible and palpable hostility. And it took a long time before it died out. One of the very best things that happened in 1960 in the Nixon-Kennedy campaign, it dissipated forever the idea that a Catholic could not be president of the U.S. You don't even hear that issue raised anymore.
No.
Both parties are fully agreed on it. The American people agree on it. Unfortunately, they may have gone on to other prejudices, but at least that one, they put a stake through the heart of that one.
As I said, I was recalling a friend of mine had just recently read War and Peace. He said that apparently every 100 years, the Christians from the West go over and kill Christians from the East, and then another couple hundred years, the Christians from the East go and kill the Christians from the West. Now, of course, we have other religious groups that are shooting at each other. It does strike me that the United States in this regard is really blessed. I mean, we know that, say, if you look at Israel and the Palestinians, these people are living right next door to each other, and the hatred that they have it's unbearable actually to watch. I'll go to the Jewish Times or to websites that involve discussion, because again, I'm very concerned about what's going over in the Middle East. And to have these people, just stand right in the street and just talk about, just kill them all. I mean, we don't live with that kind of animosity toward our neighbors, regardless of what kind of religion they except for between Republicans and Democrats now.
Well, that's different.
Is that accurate or not?
Not really.
Right.
I love Democrats because so many of them vote for our Republican candidates.
You can't prove. Oh, yes, you can prove that, can't you?
Figures will tell you that in York County.
Yeah. Well,
we have a large following in the Democratic Party that votes mostly for our candidates.
Oh, okay. And why is that, do you think?
Because they are much more conservative than the National Democratic Party.
Oh, I see. That makes sense. And the character of the York County voter is so interesting. Now, my husband, as you know, ran for judge a couple of times, and so knocking on doors around the county, we have a real diverse group in such a small, the county's pretty big, but still, sort of farmers and those sort of urban guys up in north, and the are we allowed to say the river rats along the Susquehanna?
Well, it's a very diverse county, and plus we have a large group of people who moved in from Maryland, either Baltimore County, Carroll County, or the Washington suburbs. All down in the southern end of the county, you will have a large number of voters from that group. And
that group is primarily a Democratic group, isn't it?
Not so.
Really?
Very interesting. Now, you came from Baltimore City, I came from Baltimore County, where just about everyone was registered Democrat, right?
Right.
But they didn't vote that way when they got behind the curtain, especially in Baltimore County. Now, maybe in the city they did, but
let me just make sure that I am from the county. I moved down into the city when I went to law school.
Oh, okay. Well, in Baltimore County, where I grew up, virtually everyone was registered Republican, including some of the most ultra-conservative, or Democrat, including some of the most ultra-conservative people that you would find. The idea was you got to be registered right in case you need anything out of the courthouse in Towson.
Oh, okay.
Now, when they moved north into Pennsylvania, and you talk to them, and they virtually, please ask me to be a Republican. They almost say it verbally.
Well,
as a result, a great number of those people in the districts will give you the figures. They used to be Democratic districts down there. Now they're Republican districts.
Really? What is the composition of your county with respect to Republicans and Democrats? What's the numbers?
The numbers at the present time, about 128,000 Republicans, 100,000 Democrats.
Okay. Is it realistic to presume that the sort of hub of the Democratic base is the city?
Yes.
So that as you get to the outlying areas, you'll find more Republicans.
Yes. You have the city and the immediate suburbs, which will form a Democratic core.
Mm-hmm.
As you get out from that, from that urban area, you'll find almost no Democratic precincts.
Right. Well, speaking of Hanover, of course, we're not really part of York. No.
Oh, spoken like a Hanoverian.
That's right.
I know how I've had that put to me many times, and
I practiced law, and years ago before Judge Buckingham, I had to give him a guilty plea colloquy for my client. And Judge looked at me and said, well, Muriel, Attorney Crabbs, this is an old guilty plea. And I said, well, Your Honor, we have so few criminals in Hanover that we haven't been able to keep up to date on the forms. But Hanover, yes, of course, is strongly Republican, I think.
And Penn Township is now. When I first became active, Hanover was strongly Republican, but Penn Township was equally a strong Democrat. But there's been a complete transformation now. Penn and West Mannheim and Heidelberg, the whole area is now strongly Republican.
Well, that makes it easy for me. However, also what we have there are the Utz Terrace and the Homewood, which are retirement communities. I wonder, again, about their political persuasions. But we are going to be taking a break in about a minute and a half, so I want to keep talking about that stuff. But when we come back, I would like to ask you about how the races that are coming up in November. There's a lot of people involved and wanting to be involved, so I'll try to get your take on those things and your candidates and what you'd like to say positive about them. Okay?
Sure, we'll do that.
I'm so tickled that you're here to talk about this stuff. And it's a pleasure to meet the chairman of the Republican Committee for York County.
And when I made the comment about the name being forbidding, I was thinking of my name, not the name of the park.
Peck, you haven't been able to tell us about that, but when we get
back. Next segment, okay.
Yeah, okay, thank you. That'll be great. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We are having a conversation on uprisings with A. Carville Peck Foster. And so what I want to find out from you...
Forbidding name.
Yeah, I know. I don't think so. I keep thinking of ice cream. But besides that, Peck, what is that from?
Okay. Back in my dad's day, around the early 1900s, there was a book out called Peck's Bad Boy.
Oh.
And he promptly got tagged with the nickname. And then when I went to school, I became Little Peck. And Now just remember, he earned that name. I only inherited it.
I have a feeling you've said that once or twice before.
Yes.
Well,
and my teachers and bus driver will tell you that I earned it also.
Oh, okay. So you really were pulling the pigtails and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think you're in a good occupation. And by the way, politics has pretty much been your occupation for your working life, hasn't it?
Between occupation and preoccupation.
Right.
Back, I said I got involved in 1960. Mm-hmm. So for some 10, 12 years, it was I was active and engaged in it. Mm-hmm. But then, of course, after being elected, I served 20 years in Harrisburg. And then as soon as I got out,
Wait a minute, you served as what?
State representative.
Okay.
In the 93rd District.
All right.
And immediately after getting out, I was more or less volunteered to become township supervisor in my township, which some of my supporters insisted I had to do that. Uh-huh. And someone said to my wife, Peck is really not dedicated to public service, so she used some other word. But that was the basic idea, at least.
So your occupation, as well as your advocation.
Yeah, advocation, yes.
So one of the things you told me, I know you're a history buff,
yes.
And all of this, you probably should go ahead and write a book about Pennsylvania or your county politics anyway. I'm sure there would be people interested.
People have told me I should do that.
Yeah, you got to learn to write first. So
yeah, there you go.
I mean, that's a suggestion. But you were telling me that during the Nixon-Kennedy period, no, or it might have been earlier, that in Baltimore City, a large portion of the black community were Republicans.
We have to phrase that a little differently. It wasn't a majority of the blacks that were Republican, but a majority of the Republicans in the city were black because of the Theodore R. McKeldin. Ted McKeldin was elected mayor of Baltimore as a Republican either 2 or 3 times. He was elected to governor twice, and he was a strong advocate of civil rights, and he had a tremendous following in the black community. So as a result, there were a lot of blacks in Baltimore City in those days registered as Republican. Mm-hmm. And I guess I come from that same McKeldin style heritage that I believe very strongly in civil rights and equality, and I grew up in that atmosphere.
Right. You know, so here we get to revisit this, but the democracy that we are visiting around the world at the point of a gun is not the democracy that America itself experiences. In other words, what you believe, and I think is a Republican Party position, is that everyone is equal and everyone has a right to vote, and et cetera. Mm-hmm. At the Democratic Party, I think I told you I had become a friend with a woman who was a delegate for Obama, and mm-hmm. as I had been the delegate to the Republican Party, she had to be a delegate for Obama. It wasn't she was a delegate for the party. It was, mm-hmm. And in looking at their delegate process, they had to have a certain number of women, a certain number of men, a certain number of minorities, et cetera. And I think that the Republican Party's position is that there's no color, there's no gender. It's.
I don't believe in this compartmentalization, this quota system where you have to have X percentage of each race or gender or anything. Mm-hmm. I think that's divisive, and in the long run self-defeating.
Well, by the way, though, that's what we're doing in Afghanistan, insisting that there's a certain number representing of this group and a certain number representing of that group. And again, so we're actually, so the Republican Party should be aghast because we're forcing the Democratic Party on Afghanistan.
But the Republicans aren't running in Afghanistan.
Well, we all, from all parties, are responsible.
Yeah, and let's say that in such a democracy, if you can call it that, such a primitive democracy, maybe some of these things are necessary.
Let's do something else.
Yeah,
I don't want to argue with you about this stuff. I do want to find out from you because we have like 7 minutes and there is an election coming up in November, and I'm sure you want to make sure that everybody is ready to get out there and vote, even though the Republicans have stronger numbers here. And there appears to be what they call sort of an enthusiasm gap between the Republican voters and the Democratic voters. I think you still want to make sure that you get some good turnout for these elections. So tell us, in York County, who the Republican Party supports and wants their people to be supportive of.
Whom or what?
Well, you can say whom if you
like. Basically, we want to turn out in this election in big numbers in York County. We always want to get good turnout for our local candidates, but we're going to do very well with those local candidates. All of them are going to win overwhelmingly, but we want to make sure that we get out every Republican vote possible to elect the statewide candidates, Tom Corbett for governor and Pat Toomey for U.S. Senate. We just absolutely must change what is happening in Washington, and I regard this as a watershed election nationally. So it's just imperative that we get out far more numbers in York County than we need to elect our local people. We need to build a statewide margin for Toomey and Corbett.
I think you were saying about the numbers with respect to York County, but for the state, the number of Democrats outnumbers the Republicans.
Democrats have 1 million more voters.
1 million more voters.
But as I say, there are tremendous numbers of Democrats that support Republican candidates because of our conservative values. And you'll see that in counties like Westmoreland County, which is always a bedrock Democratic county, but now it's electing Republicans.
I see. One of the, at the Republican State Committee dinner, Representative Bonnier, the Congressman Bonnier. Is it Boehner?
Boehner.
Boehner. How do you spell that? Because I think
it's
spelled
Boehner, but it's pronounced Boehner.
Okay.
In the English language, you can never depend on pronunciation.
Right. Well, anyway, one of the things he pronounced was that there were a lot of people in the Tea Party movement who were individuals that the Republican Party needed to reach out to because, again, they are individuals who haven't actually been active in politics but have become so moved by the direction the country has taken, particularly if fearing for the economics and, loss of liberty. There's many areas, but many of the areas should be things that the Republicans, I think he was saying it's their natural, the Republican Party is their natural home.
They will have much greater affinity for the Republican Party because under the Obama administration, there's been the fiscal policy of spend, borrow, and to take the national debt and the deficit to areas that are truly frightening. When we have the debt approaching our gross national product, that is scary.
That's the payment on the debt. That's not
the payment. That is frightening territory, and that's why a lot of the people in the Tea Party movement have the affinity to the Republicans. Now, I'll be the first to admit that we're not blameless in the matter going back over the years, but certainly the Republicans have always been the party that would do more to hold down spending. And when you talk about taxes and keeping taxes low, the only way you're going to do that is by controlling spending. From time to time you hear about tax reform, but tax reform alone will not lower taxes. Only lowering spending will lower taxes, and that's what we have to do on the national level to bring our fiscal house into order, and we are not going to do that by electing the Democrat Sestak to the Senate, who says we didn't do enough in spending. He said we should have spent more, that we needed to go further. And the same thing with the health care plan. We didn't go far enough with it. Now that is really out of sync with the majority of people in Pennsylvania and the U.S., and that's why the Tea Party people, 9/12 groups, are not a part of the Republican Party per se, but they have an affinity for it.
Well, it's an interesting time. I guess, what's that Chinese proverb? Hope you live in interesting times.
Yes.
I think it's going to get a little more interesting, and you are going to continue to be the head of this York Republican Committee. Is this going to be your last term as a...
I expect it to be, yes. I made that announcement at the reorganization that this will be my finale. After all, it's time for the youth movement. Nobody would accuse me at this point of leading the youth movement.
Well, I don't know. But you're certainly very... Are you still in a band?
Yes. Yes, I still play bluegrass music.
Okay. Well, so you're not going to...
We'll be doing that on October the 8th for Senator Wall and Representative Gillespie at their little shindig over in East York.
Okay. Well, tell everyone to be there. And I'm going to thank you very much for being here, Peck. Really, it was a joy to have you. And we're going to say goodbye.
Okay. Well, goodbye, Muriel. It's been a pleasure.
Good. Thanks for coming.